Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we are going over Chapter 3 from the book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. And today we're going to be talking about the liking principle. Again, one of the 7 principles of influence that Dr. Cialdini goes over in his book. Last time we talked about the first principle, reciprocation. Reciprocation meaning that when you give something to somebody, they are expected to give something back in return. And we talked about how powerful a principle reciprocation was, both in that you can dictate when you receive a follow-up request, and the other person, the quote-unquote victim in the situation, that's kind of a weird word to say, but victim in the situation, doesn't have any say on when you approach them with a request. Subsequently, that can trigger an unequal exchange due to the fact that people don't like owing other people things. So they would do almost anything to get that form of debt off their shoulders. So this could kind of look like, you go up to a friend at a random moment, do something nice for them, and now all of a sudden they owe you something. They weren't in control of the situation. You were in control by dictating when you went up to them and asked for the favor. And Dr. Cialdini called it a very powerful principle of influence. Today, with the liking principle, another very powerful principle of influence. Because, and we'll just go to the first slide, because most people are influenced by the people we like. Now, the story of this chapter starts off with a story on Darwin's theory of evolution. That starts off by saying, well, in surveys, 33% of Americans agree that we as a species developed due to natural selection. So 33%, that's not a lot. It's a third, basically. And over the course of the years, scientists have tried to increase the percentage by a couple different ways, by saying and explaining the fact that, hey, this is a consensus among scientists. We have studies confirming it. They highlight advances in areas of society that are due to evolutionary theory, technology, what have you. They also highlight that there's a more intensive teaching of the theory of evolution. Rather, not that they highlight it, but they're trying to do more intensive teaching of the theory of evolution. But none of these things have worked. Because it's not that people don't agree with the logic of the evolutionary theory. It's just that it conflicts with their pre-existing beliefs, values, religious beliefs, etc. And there's a famous saying that Dr. Cialdini quotes that you can reason, Jonathan Swift. Yeah, British writer Jonathan Swift said, "It is useless to attempt to reason a man out of a thing he was never reasoned into." So, your beliefs were kind of maybe sometimes just kind of there. You just happened upon them. They were passed down to you. And you're trying to reason somebody out of something that has been ingrained so deeply for potentially a long time. It's going to make it very tough. So what a team of Canadian researchers did was they sent out reports saying that a famous actor had made favorable comments about the evolutionary theory. And specifically, they used George Clooney. Who did they spotlight as a champion of Darwinian principles? George Clooney. In the study, when people were led to believe Clooney had made favorable comments about a book that took a pro-evolutionary stance, they became significantly more accepting of the theory. And this didn't change. The result was the same regardless of the participant's age, sex, degree of religiosity. And it didn't change either if they used George Clooney, so a male celebrity, or if they did a female celebrity. They found the same pattern. So what does this illustrate? This illustrates liking. This illustrates liking. And specifically association, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But the liking principle is simply the quote here at the beginning of the chapter from Joe Gerard, the greatest car salesman in the Guinness Book of World Records, from Detroit, actually. The beginning quote of the chapter, the quote heading, "There is nothing more effective in selling anything than getting customers to really believe that you like them." And I think that kind of sums up the liking principle rather nicely. If you think that somebody has a genuine interest in you, you're more likely to do things for them because you like them. I know it kind of sounds like very simple, but you're more likely to do things for people you like rather than people you don't like. In this example with the, George Clooney saying favorable things about evolution and more people looking at evolution favorably because of it is due to, I think, something called association, which we're going to talk about later, where when positive things come from a person, for example, positive news, positive compliments, positive comments, you tend to view that person favorably than if they were negative comments. Or you tend to rather associate the status of that celebrity with the rightness of what they're saying. So you tend to view what they're saying as correct just because they are a celebrity, they look good, they make a lot of money, they're in the headlines, etc. That's kind of more so what it is, rather than the previous thing I was saying. Let's continue on, though, because liking can be used for profit, as we have seen with Tupperware home parties. So the Tupperware home party is where, to try to kind of sum it up, it is where Tupperware sales reps or people put on Tupperware parties in order to sell Tupperware. And the person throwing the party gets a sort of cut of the sales of that Tupperware. And basically they put on all the work of hosting people at their home, playing games, and then sales of the Tupperware ensue. And the Tupperware company gets to make money off it. And it does it in a couple different ways. And Dr. Cialdini highlights how the Tupperware home party uses kind of all the principles of influence here that a lot of these we haven't talked about yet. But it's reciprocation in that games are played, prizes are won. Even if you don't win, you get to choose a prize. So you're giving something to somebody and expecting something in return. Authority, you have experts who vouch for the quality and safety of the product. And I believe there is a Tupperware representative at the party. So an authority figure who can vouch for the quality of the product. You have social proof. When you see everybody in the party buying Tupperware, it makes you think, oh, maybe I should buy Tupperware because everybody else is buying it. There's scarcity in it, and there are limited time offers that, hey, you can only we're only offering this at this specific Tupperware party, so you better get it now or else it's going to be an increased price if you try to buy it at the store. There's commitment and consistency in people describing the benefits of Tupperware they already own. So there may be like a segment of the party where people go around and you have to like tell a story on, you know, how Tupperware has made your life a little bit easier for your family, kids, you know, describing the benefits that you've seen from Tupperware. So getting you to commit to something. And then there's the unity. And once you buy it, you are welcomed into the Tupperware family to then subsequently maybe even start your own Tupperware party. And the cycle goes on and on and on. It's called an endless chain. If you guys can see that from one of the bullet points. So in this party, the party host, that's secretly the most persuasive part. Because this is where the liking principle takes place, is that you're not going to the store buying from a large retailer, Target, Walmart, etc. You're buying from somebody you know, who you like, who's your friend. And that's the most persuasive part, is that you feel obligated to now buy the Tupperware because, hey, it's your friend. It's somebody you know personally and that you probably like. This was really interesting in that Tupperware actually severed their relationship with Target because the sales from Target were too strong. Too strong because it took away from the number of Tupperware parties that could be arranged. Because think about it. If people just bought stuff from Target, then when you get invited to a Tupperware party, you're going to say, hey, I don't need to go to the Tupperware party. I just bought Tupperware from Target. But they were benefiting way more from the Tupperware party. So they said, you know what, Target, we're done. It's a bad deal. And we want to push more of the Tupperware parties. Because it's not just the sales from like that specific party. It's the endless chain that can potentially be built off of that Tupperware party. And salespeople do this all the time. I remember, I think I even used to do this back when I was a sales rep, was, you know, if you ask, if a customer ends up buying from you, or even if they don't buy from you, you just ask them, hey, well, okay, if you don't have quite the need for this product, right? Do you know anybody in a similar situation to you who does need the product that you could maybe refer? So you just ask for that referral. You ask for that additional list of people they might know. And that way, then when you go to those people, you can name drop and say, oh, so-and-so told me that you might be interested. And now all of a sudden, you have that kind of, you're already starting off on the right foot by mentioning a name that they know, a friend of theirs. Oh, this sales rep already talked to, you know, a friend of mine, so he must not be a bad guy. And they like that person, so maybe subsequently they might like you. So all in all, 92% of customers trust a product recommendation from someone they know. This is stronger than 5-star ratings, stronger than online reviews, stronger than, you know, just random customer testimonials. 92% of customers trust a product recommendation from someone they know. Huge principle. So there's this guy, Gerard, world's greatest car salesman, and he used the liking principle to great effect. And he was famous for saying that, you know, if you offer a fair price and somebody they like to buy from, well, they're going to buy your product. Famously, he actually sent out, we're going to find this out later, page 91, but he would send out holiday greeting cards that said, I like you on them. And he sent them for like every single holiday. Crazy. Lots of greeting cards going out. But he built his reputation. He got so successful because of the liking principle. So why do I like you? What are things that go into liking somebody? One, physical attractiveness. And like we saw earlier, this is what I was trying to convey with the example of George Clooney and saying something favorable about a book that was pro-evolutionary, was this halo effect. I think that's what was taking place in that Canadian study, was that the halo effect takes place when one positive characteristic of somebody dominates how they are viewed in other areas. So in this case, it would be, the celebrity of George Clooney ends up having a halo effect in other random areas. So if George Clooney says something, oh, it must be true because he's physically attractive. He was people's sexiest man alive at one year, long time ago. He's in movies. He makes a lot of money. Okay, so his opinion must matter, basically. But in this situation, it could also be, oh, he's good looking, so he must be trustworthy, smart, financially stable, not a crazy guy, etc. And you auto-assign the favorable traits to somebody when they have a positive characteristic about them. So, okay, oh, he's good looking, so he must be talented, honest, agreeable, trustworthy, etc. And there was another Canadian study that looked at the one of these elections in Canada, a federal election, and they found that attractive candidates received 2.5 times as many votes as unattractive ones. I have no clue how they did this. Actually, probably in the back of the book, he probably explains a little more on the study. And the crazy thing is, 73% of Canadian voters denied even being influenced by the looks of the candidates. So people don't want to admit that this takes place, but it does. It does. It kind of flies under the radar. And it's not just in situations of an election. It's in a lot of other areas, other studies, hiring. They write here, a similar effect has been found in hiring situations. Good grooming of applicants in a simulated employment interview accounted for more favorable hiring decisions than did job qualifications. This, even though the interviewers claimed that appearance played in their choices. The advantage given to attractive workers extends past hiring day to payday, and even they found that attractive workers earned a little more in their salary than people who were not viewed as attractive as them. Crazy. It's the same thing with kids. Let me see if I can find that right here. Moreover, there were social advantage. Moreover, the social benefits of good looks begin to accumulate early. Adults view aggressive acts as less naughty when performed by attractive elementary school children, and teachers presume nice-looking children to be more intelligent than their less attractive classmates. It's kind of weird to say that about kids, but I think what they mean is like kids who are organized, they dress well for school, they in general are well groomed, well kept, nice haircut, what have you. Totally can see that. Versus if somebody comes in, not nice clothes, their hair's all raggedy, nails aren't cut. I remember my parents telling me that was a big thing back in the day. Yeah, you're going to be viewed in a different light, basically. So physical attractiveness was the first thing. Second thing, similarity. So why do we like somebody? Well, we like people who are like us. We like people physically attractive and then people who are like us. This was viewed in a survey of an online dating site where the more similar people were, the more likely they were to meet in person. You are more likely to help people who are dressed like you. This was shown in a survey or demonstration study. Yeah, maybe study would be the best word, of an anti-war demonstration where they were trying to get signatures to sign a petition, and people were more likely to sign up with the petitioner if the petitioner was dressed like them. In this particular situation, I think it was what was it? Was it an anti-Vietnam demonstration? And if you have a lot of like veterans at the rally or the demonstration, if you have somebody petitioning for signatures who's dressed also like a veteran and maybe like a military sort of uniform, they're going to be more likely to get the signatures because they're dressed like the people that they are trying to get the signatures from. So it's in the way you dress, it's in the similar interests that you have. If you both like a certain sports team, you both are into certain hobbies, video games, sports, weightlifting, Tupperware, etc. Even extending beyond that into names that just resemble each other. They took a look at here when Rolling Stone issued its list of 500 greatest songs. Some of their top highest ranked songs were songs from the band The Rolling Stones, or songs with something to do with Rolling Stone. Like Cialdini gives a example of the song Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. That was like one of the top ranked. Other songs from the Rolling Stones were also up there, top ranked. And it's in so many things. It's in, verbal patterns, texting styles, body language. If you just simulate body language with somebody in a negotiation, you tend to lead to increased compliance or an increased chance of making a deal with somebody. If, mimicking certain words that they use, mimicking the way they talk, mimicking the way they present themselves, their body language, etc. I think I put some bullet points here on this next page. And servers know this too. Waiters, waitresses, etc. They know this as well. They found, actually, let me go to that page. Food servers trained to mimic customers' words received higher tips. Okay, I thought they were going to give a percentage, but mimicking certain customers' words, they got higher tips. And if, right now we're learning about the liking principle, that kind of makes sense. All of those things, mimicking words, mimicking body behavior, body gestures, even just the verbal patterns, they all lead to more compliance. Page 88, Dr. Leigh Thompson. There we go. Dr. Leigh Thompson. I'm trying to figure out what was I mean. And it's so far social dimensions such as presence or absence of among interacting parties. Found their rival negotiate. Oh, okay. So here's what I meant by this last section here. Was, okay, so for all these things that are good, that we can find commonalities in people, which leads to liking, which leads to more compliance, what we often see, and this is what Dr. Leigh Thompson is talking about here, most often of the time, we just focus on differences. We don't really focus on the things that bring us together. And this is kind of where there's work to be improved on, or there's things to be gained from. Because out there in the real world, if you can recognize the things that issue this liking principle, the things that trigger this liking principle, then you can potentially have an advantage out there in wherever, in school, business, career, sports, etc. But Dr. Leah Thompson shows that, in negotiation studies, people tended to not recognize the similarities 50% of the time. And all in all, when we don't recognize it, this could be the cause of the social distance between racial or ethnic groups, or people not being able to come to a deal, people getting into fights, people in relationships maybe, or trying to find a relationship and not being in one, etc. It's just that there's untapped potential there if you can recognize the similarities and be able to utilize the liking principle. So what did we talk about? We talked about physical attractiveness. That's one way how we like people. We just talked about, oh my gosh, I have such a short-term memory. Similarity. People who are similar to us. And another way this happens, the liking principle, why it happens is, or how it happens is from compliments. And again, from Jonathan Swift, flattery is the food of fools. So just by giving out compliments could cause people to like you and subsequently comply with the request. This is shown, no greater of an example in today's day and age is this shown than on social media. I mean, just think about that. Social media, the likes, the hearts, the retweets, the reposts. Whenever somebody likes something on social media, likes something of yours on social media, the reward centers in your brain go off and light up. It's like Cialdini talks about it, saying that it's like you're eating sweets or like you won prize money, or shoot, maybe even have like done drugs in a way. It's a dopamine hit. It's a dopamine hit. And compliments work in several different areas. So the hairstylist who compliments the customer, they see larger tips from it. The person being interviewed, if they give a compliment to the person interviewing them, it results in a more favorable hiring recommendation, probably even more likely of a chance of them getting hired. And it's not just from human to human. Excuse me. Compliments from your computer cause people to look favorably on the computer. Probably rated as, oh, this is a great working machine. It's fast. It's reliable. Even though it probably has like the same metrics, the same speed, data, etc. as another computer. And it's just such a strong click-run response. Remember the fixed action patterns that we were talking about in the first episode, one of the first episodes we did, where it's just automatic. You just see certain things or you get certain things, and it's just a click-run response. Like somebody gives you a compliment, you can't help it. It's just an automatic, oh, okay, they must be a good person. And you just comply. You just automatically think that. Oh, they're like a celebrity. They're vouching for a certain product. Oh, must be good. Must be a good product. So they did a study, and the men received comments about themselves from another person who needed a favor for them. And this was the interesting thing, is that they knew that they were looking for a favor from them. So keep that in mind. And then there was 3 groups. The first group, the men got only positive comments. The other group, the men only got negative comments. And the other group got a mix of positive and negative. So what did they find? They found that the evaluator that gave just the praise was like the best. Okay? With what we've learned so far, that kind of makes sense. Now, this still held true even though the men knew the evaluator needed the favor. So they still liked him, even though they know, okay, this guy's trying to get something out of me by swaying me with just like positive comments. But I think the most surprising thing of all was that the praise did not have to be accurate to work. The praise did not have to be accurate to work. So you could praise somebody, give a compliment for something that's like kind of not even like remotely true. Like, oh, you're like, I'm trying to think of an example. A famous example I can think of is, I remember Cat Williams, famous comedian, had a joke where like somebody would go up to him and say, "Oh, today's a tall day for you. You're looking sharp and tall today." And Cat is like shorter than me. He's a short guy, I think. So it's like, okay, well, I know I'm not tall, but thank you for giving me that compliment. And then subsequently, they're more likely to comply to a request. It's pretty crazy. It's just a click run response. Just that fixed action pattern. You can't help it. It just happens. Our system's way of just complying with certain things, all of these principles of influence. So Dr. Cialdini talks about how he has challenges with giving compliments. He doesn't necessarily always give them in front of the person or like tells it like straight directly to a person. So he uses these couple different tactics, and there's two of them. That's giving a compliment behind a deserving person's back, and also finding and giving genuine compliments you want the recipient to live up to. So these are two methods for using compliments. Right. So the first one, giving a compliment behind a deserving person's back, could be potentially very influential in that by not giving it to them directly, you almost seem more authentic as doing it because you come across as not having an ulterior motive. Like, you go up to a person and give them a compliment, and maybe their defenses are up because you're like, okay, you're not usually this nice to me. What do you want from me? Kind of something like that. Whereas you do it behind somebody's back, and then they hear it third party from somebody else. They're, oh, really? They think about that? So they're not just being nice to me. They actually think that. Right? You come across as way more sincere when you do it behind somebody's back. Because usually, what do we hear? A third party from another person. Oh, so-and-so said that you suck. But they didn't want to tell you directly in person, right? So you're seen as not having a motive for it, and it's more believable. It's kind of like what you really, really think because you're not telling it to that person directly. Secondly, you find and give genuine compliments you want the recipient to live up to, so that you expect to see more of the trait you praise in the future. Dr. Cialdini talks about a story with this person who dropped the paperboy, or what have you, would drop off the weekly newspaper. And it would kind of be, he would hit the driveway, but it would kind of be errant. It'd be in like different spots. You know, sometimes it'd be a little far. And he praised his newspaper dropper offer, the paperboy. And he praised him one time and said, "Oh, I want to thank you for putting my newspaper in spots where it's not likely to get wet, keeping it out of the puddles." And what he found was the newspaper never got in a puddle after that. Let's see Carl has left self-addressed in one of the delivered papers that is designed to prompt me to send him a check as a thanks for his service. Paper carrier, that's the professional term, paperboy. Most of the time, the paper lands close enough to the center of the driveway that it doesn't get wet from the watering systems. That's what it was. So he writes him a note praising the conscientiousness he's shown by so often positioning my paper where it doesn't get wet. In the past, Carl hit the driveway center area about 75% of the time. This year was 100%. So, yes, okay. Did the paper get wet sometimes? Yes. But by giving him the compliment makes the other person feel good. It makes the other person want to live up to that compliment, live up to that praise. Oh, thanks for not getting the paper wet. Shoot. I definitely have put that paper in some wet spots on his driveway. All right, better not do that again. 100% accuracy rate. Center of the driveway. You know, he's like the Peyton Manning, just straight down the middle, right in the breadbasket of the receiver every single time. Well, guys, we're going to stop there for now. We're about halfway through the chapter. So we are going to pick up next time with the second half of the liking principle, starting off with contact and cooperation. Oh, and this is where we're going to talk more about racial and ethnicity and how to get people to more influence each other or like each other, maybe a little better. With that, guys, thank you very much for listening. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.